bitter criticism. Reading Russia Today, the forbidden news from the free world. I mean, forbidden news, people. Yeah, how good are those news? It has to be for. I forgot. Forgive. No, not forgive. Forgiven. I just forgot. I don't know how to say. This is forgotten, not forgotten. Anyway, just trying to read some forbidden. Yeah, those forbidden news. As everybody knows, a lot of things are happening in the Middle East. But yeah, a lot of terrible things happening in Lebanon. But I'm going to read about NATO. Can you see? Russia Today, October 1st, 2024. New NATO chief backs using Western weapons to strike deep into Russia. It's not, I don't remember the name, Stoltenberg. It's not Stoltenberg anymore. New NATO chief backs using Western weapons to strike deep into Russia. Secretary General Mark Rutte. I thought it was a woman, but I guess he's from the Netherlands. Secretary General Mark Rutte says it's up to individual bloc members to outline rules of engagement for Kiev. I have a photograph of Mark Rutte. Mark Rutte, the new genocide. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte speaks during a press conference in Brussels, Belgium on October 1st, 2024. NATO's newly appointed Secretary General, former Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte, has backed the idea of allowing Ukraine to use Western supply weapons to strike deep into Russian territory. Rutte made the remarks on Tuesday during a press conference following a ceremony commemorating the transfer of power from his predecessor Jens Stoltenberg. The new NATO chief backed the idea of Ukraine doing whatever it sees fit, claiming the country is within its rights to do so. So this guy is even worse. Quote, we know international law, and according to the international law, this right does not end at the border. So that means that supporting Ukraine's right to self-defense means that it is also possible for them to strike legitimate targets on the aggressor territory, Rutte said. The new NATO chief, however, shifted responsibility from the bloc to its individual members, stating it was ultimately up to them to outline the rules of engagement for Kiev with regards to weapon systems they supply. Quote, at the end, it's up to each ally to determine its support for Ukraine. That's not up to me. This is for the individual allies in their relationship with Ukraine. Rutte's remarks come amid the ongoing debate in the West as to whether Kiev should be allowed to strike deep into internationally recognized Russian territory with weaponry it receives from its backers. Thus far, no consensus on the matter has been reached. The statement met with a negative reaction from Russia. The head of the right-wing nationalist Liberal Democratic Party of Russia, LDPR, Leonid Slutsky, said the remarks clearly signaled that the change in NATO's leadership would not entail any shifts in its aggressive stance. Quote, the new Secretary General has been described as a pragmatist, capable of compromise. but little depends on his personal qualities. And the first statements have leave no doubt that the course towards general escalation and asserting the dominance of the golden billion countries will continue. Slutsky wrote on a telegram post. Moscow is currently in the process of amending its nuclear doctrine, with the changes meant to address the challenges the country has recently faced. Under the proposed rules of nuclear engagement, Russia will be allowed to deploy its deterrent in the event of a large-scale conventional attack by a non-nuclear power, which is backed with nuclear powers. And I'm going to read another one because it was kind of short. Let's see if there's a related news. The related news. It says, Russia Today, September 29th, yesterday or 2 days ago something. At home, Russia and former Soviet Union. Here's why Putin decided to send a nuclear message to Washington. The decision was long overdue and is a response to reckless aggression from Washington. This article is by Dmitry Suslov, member of the Russian Council on Foreign and Defense Policy, Deputy Director of World Economy and International Politics at Moscow's Higher School of Economics and Wildlife Club expert. You have a photograph, file photo. Russian President Vladimir Putin. And the photograph, updating Russia's nuclear doctrine is certainly not as a spontaneous step. It is long overdue and is linked to the fact that the current level of atomic deterrence has proven inadequate, especially given that it failed to prevent the West from waging a hybrid war against our country. Until recently, the desire to inflict a strategic defeat on us was considered insane and impossible, given that Russia is a nuclear superpower. But it turns out that it is taken seriously. It turns out that it's taken seriously in some minds in the West. That is why the current level of nuclear deterrence has proved inadequate in the face of the US-led bloc's growing involvement in the conflict against Russia, which has already turned into discussions about strikes by Western long-range missiles deep into our territory. In this regard, lowering the threshold for the use of atomic weapons and expanding the number of situations in which Moscow allows this step is long overdue. Just as the wording of the previous version of the doctrine, we stated that the use of nuclear weapons is in a non-nuclear conflict was only possible in the event of a threat to Russia's very existence as a state, was no longer in the line with global realities. Now this threshold has been lowered, and the use of nuclear weapons in a non-nuclear conflict is possible in the event of a critical threat to the country's sovereignty. I repeat, not the very existence of our state, but the critical threats to its sovereignty. That is why the use of nuclear weapons is now permitted both against a non-nuclear state that commits aggression and against nuclear state that supports it. This is a response to the proxy war and that is being waged against us and which is becoming more and more intense. As for President Vladimir Putin's public announcement on the changes, this of course related to the discussion I mentioned earlier about the use of Western long-range missiles deep into our territory. Russia really believes that this will mean a transition to direct warfare. And in order to get this message across, the president has decided to announce some changes and concrete manifestations of lowering the nuclear threshold. The nuclear threshold here, and now to show the West that the risks for it are increasing. And they need to understand that entering into a direct war against us will be much worse for them than the defeat of Ukraine on battlefield. As for the reactions of parties not involved in our conflict with the West, my personal experience of communicating with experts from such countries shows that China, despite its public stance on the inadmissibility of the use of nuclear weapons, the need for denuclearization and almost a ban on atomic bombs, understands the situation in which finds itself. It also understands the need to strengthen deterrence, even though it professes the doctrine of no force use of nuclear weapons. This means that Russia must qualitatively intensify its work with friendly countries on nuclear policy and convince our partners that lowering the threshold for the use of nuclear weapons is aimed at eliminating their use, or at least reducing the risk of such a step. I am sure that the vast majority of countries, the majority of the world, will understand this. Incidentally, Washington's recent calls to resume negotiations on the START treaty were precisely to make it easier for it to wage a hybrid war against us, and even to make it easier for the Americans to enter into a direct war against Russia. The US wants to take the issue out of the picture and pretend that there's no connection between atomic weapons and the proxy war they are already waging. To this end, they want to drag us into negotiations on nuclear armaments. That is why Russia is now rejecting these negotiations, because first the US must stop trying to inflict a strategic defeat on us. Only then will we return to a dialogue on strategic stability. This is absolutely right, because the link between nuclear and non-nuclear weapons has always been there. Since Washington's own first use of the atomic bomb in 1945, the aim of this instrument has been to ensure superiority in conventional warfare and then in nuclear warfare. The US I repeat, wants to destroy this logic, and Russia, of course, is not interested. Well, this article was first published by the newspaper Rossiyskaya Gazeta and was translated and edited by Russia Today team.